Hello. Hello, everybody. It's me, Joe Pasevich. Welcome back to Control Room. It is technically, it is Wednesday, January 22nd. January 22nd. This is the Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025 show, but it is being taped after January 22nd. So it is now actually January 24th. Okay, just so that when you're cataloging my shows, you can write on your clip, you can write on your index January 22. But anyway, January 24. Hi, it's Friday. It's Joe Pasevich. It's still cold, and we are coming to you from the Marshfield Community Media Studios at the Marshfield High School, as usual. Control Room is now available on YouTube. Just go to YouTube, type in Control Room MCM. 3 separate words, Control Room MCM, and that's where you can see the compilation of all my shows now. It's being moved over there. Tomorrow is Election Day in the town of Marshfield. We are going to be voting on whether or not to finance the construction of a new South Shore Vocational Technical High School. Okay, we don't have a lot of information that is easy to understand. You have a Marshfield School District here in the town of Marshfield. We are a part of the Marshfield School District. Now, the town meeting members or participants, voters, have voted to join the South Shore Vocational Technical School District. So you are going to belong now to 2 school districts, and you're going to be paying for 2 high schools. And you know, nobody's against vocational technical education. The question is how deeply do we want to get into it? When we voted to join the vocational technical district, did people understand that we would be helping to pay for a new high school, which is going to cost close to $300 million? No, we didn't know that. Did we know how many of our students would be going to the vocational technical high school? No, we really didn't know that. Did we know how much it would cost to send our students? No, we really didn't know that. If we send anywhere from, I think there are 3 kids there now, to 30, I think 3 last year, 28 this year, and a potential of 40 times 4 or 160, how much is that going to cost us? Do we really know? No. There have been some charts that have been produced that will show what the cost to the average household in Marshfield will be over the next 30 years to pay for the new high school, the new technical high school. Now remember, we're still paying for the Marshfield High School. So these charts show for the average household $168 to $130 a year. And you don't think that's a whole lot, do you? Well, what happens is that the school costs close to $300 million. The state school building authority picks up a percentage of that. The rest of the payment for the school gets divided among the member towns of the South Shore Vocational Technical High School District. And we are paying something like 16 or 19% of that total cost. We're paying more than any of the other towns individually because we're a bigger and a richer town. Also, the cost per student has to be factored in. So when you consider the cost per student that for each child we send there, added to the cost for the new school over 30 years, the town of Marshfield taxpayers are probably going to have to come up with more than $3 million a year, all right, over the next, well, basically 30 years, okay? If you're comfortable with that, then you can go vote yes. If you have questions, if you don't want to send 160 Marshfield students there, and if you have a problem with the fact that our enrollment here at Marshfield High School goes down, but the school budget does not go down, it stays the same or continues to go up, while we're also taking on the cost of the South Shore Voke-Tech, you might want to vote no tomorrow. All right? And you might not even see this before tomorrow, but I will try to get it on. Hopefully it's on the air. Anyway, other than that, there's a hell of a lot going on. Trump has been inaugurated, and the inauguration has occurred. Over 100 executive orders have been issued. Some of them are actually remotely relevant to what goes on locally. Remember, the lesson of Control Room is if you want to understand what's happening locally, look at what's happening nationally and vice versa, because human nature is what it is. And that helps to explain almost everything. Attitudes are the same no matter what level of government you're working at. And a lot of us out there, like myself, have had experience at different levels of government, and it's been borne out to be true. We're still actually dealing also with the issue of the MBTA Zoning Act, Community Zoning Act. We understand the MBTA Community Zoning Act. The use of the MBTA is a canard. In other words, there are people who want, for whatever reasons, feel that communities all over eastern Massachusetts should be building tens of thousands of new apartment units all over eastern Massachusetts. And they're tying that into the presence of the MBTA services in the various towns. They're saying, well, if you're going to have MBTA service, then you should take on hundreds or thousands of more housing units. And the way it's been presented to us, or the narrative, is that people that live in apartment buildings are relatively poor or limited means, and so those people have to use the MBTA. I don't know about that. It doesn't really make sense. A lot of people that use the more successful or productive or busy components of the MBTA are actually relatively wealthy people that are commuting on the commuter rail systems to their offices in downtown Boston. And we talked about this before. The MBTA system is a radial-centric system. In other words, it has a central core where all the lines of transit go into one central point, or two central points, North Station and South Station. Does that really help me if I want to get over the Mansfield? No. So the whole system has to be redone. The whole system is hopelessly in debt and sinking even farther day by day. And the ridership on the MBTA across all the components of it is down. And it plummeted after COVID happened in 2020. And it has never recovered. So revenues are down, usage is down, the layout is outdated and doesn't service people that need it, and it doesn't reach communities like it should. Marshfield doesn't have any MBTA service, but yet we're being included under a dictatorial mandate to build over 1,100 apartments in Marshfield. The whole thing doesn't make sense. And of course, mainstream media is still pushing for it. It's like 40B. 40B also was a canard. It was a way to get developers more development opportunities. And I've been to those conferences with developers, and I can tell you from what I know and from participating in events like that, that developers, real estate developers, know where every single vacant or available piece of land is located in this state, almost nationally. The databases are that good now, where they know that there's 32 acres in Tingsboro, or there's 42 acres in Marshfield, and what services are there, what's the background in terms of the local government, et cetera. So they call these economic opportunity zones. And already people that saw this MBTA Communities Act coming, one big national company has already purchased one of the apartment complexes on Plain Street for many millions of dollars. And of course, what are they going to do? If this MBTA community zoning goes through, it'll allow them to build higher density, replace what is there now with a higher density project, probably flip it or maintain it, sell it to BlackRock or some national management company that's just going to collect rent on it forever. So there's a lot of pieces into this, and what I'm trying to say, there's a lot of background influence. This is not just Governor Healy or the Attorney General saying, or some like Citizens Housing and Planning Association or the Metropolitan Area Planning Council or some other advocacy group saying, there's so many people that need a place to live. This is for the good of mankind. Well, no, there's a whole development and capitalistic angle to all this. And the developers know where those opportunities are. They have a lot of money. They don't know what to do with it. They want to pour it into real estate somewhere. They want to realize profits. There's a lot of working pieces here, a lot of moving pieces. It's not as simple as, people don't have a place to live. It's a lot more complicated. And what's even above and beyond all that is the whole financial system, the whole finance system. And taxation is what really drives the cost of living. in a place like Massachusetts, which is now like the second most important, expensive place to live in the entire United States. I think we're just below Hawaii right now in terms of cost of living. So there's a lot of elements to that. So I've got a bunch of clips. I'm a little bit disorganized because we're working with a brand new system here. When this studio was established, we had a pretty sophisticated system. It wasn't top of the line, but now we've moved on to an even more brand new system. If I could take a picture and show you, I would. There's all kinds of buttons and switches here. So we're going to try to work through some clips and hopefully inform and entertain you as we go. One thing that came up recently was cold weather. You notice that last year they claimed was one of the hottest years on record for the North America and for the world. Well, guess what? We're having one of the coldest winters years on record so far, and things tend to balance out. Yes, are we warmer than we were 10,000 years ago when Marshfield was under 5,000 feet of ice? Yes, okay. So we're in a warming trend right now, and who knows where that's going to end, but it's what's happening naturally. And if you have a warm year, you still tend to have a cold year. And of course, down in New Orleans, I guess there are places around New Orleans and Louisiana that had up to 10 inches of snow. I remember back in 1976 or 77, it was 2 below and 2 below. That's how I remember that. So, I mean, this is not unusual to have this kind of an outbreak, but there are people actually really suffering. My friends in Mississippi are telling me stories where houses that have very little or no insulation are just in a wreck right now in terms of broken pipes and everything like that going on. So anyway, here's a clip that you might enjoy from New Orleans, a New Orleans snowball fight. I don't know if I'm going to do this right now. Bear with me if I mess it up. And also, I don't have my my name tag up there, but we'll try to get that too. Let me see if I can play this clip from New Orleans, which you might be amused by. Now I click on this. And I'll hit the play button, see if that works. Tape. How do you like that? And there's still people walking around in crazy outfits and costumes, and it's not even Mardi Gras. When is Mardi Gras this year? It's like, in 4 weeks? That's New Orleans. Isn't that amazing? Enjoy. Looks like it could be in the South End. But people do seem to be warmly dressed, though. That's fun. Doesn't that look like fun? I don't see any snowmen, though. Nobody built a snowman. Now, those people probably had no work or no school, because areas like that, when they get snow, they become totally paralyzed. They don't know what to do. A friend of mine down in Florida, they were talking about they got 2 inches and everything. No, in South Carolina, they got 2 inches of snow and everything shut down. Now I go back to 1. That's me. Now, where's my byline? Yeah, it's 2 or 1. We're trying to see if I can get a byline to come up. I thought it was DDR2 was the graphic. This thing down here.
So it's in preview right now.
There, oh, let's see. There's Joe Pasevich. There we go. Hey. We're getting really good at this. I don't know how much this system costs, but it's a system that a lot of studios and podcasters and vloggers use. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to show you. Let's talk about. Let's talk if we can. Let's look at an editorial from WCVB. We're just talking about the MBTA Communities Act, and this is how your mainstream media is spinning things. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to take off my Joe Pasevich thing, and I want to hit this, and let's see what WCVB is saying about the MBTA Communities Act. So take.
Massachusetts continues to experience a housing crisis, with demand far outstripping supply. Unfortunately, voters in some local communities seem unwilling to do their part to help address it. Voters in Needham this week threw out a rezoning plan that would have allowed more multifamily housing in the main commercial district. The ambitious rezoning plan had been offered by the town as a way to satisfy the MBTA Communities Law, and it passed a town meeting vote in the fall. Needham voters aren't the only ones dragging their heels. The town of Milton took the issue all the way to the state's highest court. This week, the Supreme Judicial Court upheld the state's power to enforce the law, whose goal is to provide more housing near public transit. We understand the anxiety in some communities about overdevelopment and impact on local services. Arguments, however, about preserving the character of these communities by rejecting multifamily housing garners less support with our board. And as we have said previously, the reluctance of some communities to expand their housing supply comes at a painful cost. Low inventory and persistently high prices means teachers, firefighters, and DPW workers can't afford to live where they work. Local businesses will struggle to find workers as well. There is still time for Needham, Milton, and other MBTA communities to take steps to get on board with the law. The High Court concluded the state needs to reissue regulations that guide the implementation after a formal process is complete. That leaves a window of opportunity for non-compliant communities to make things right.
Just listen to the language that you hear from somebody like that. Dragging their heels, reluctant, not doing their part. It doesn't sit well with our board, with our board. I don't know where these executives at the mainstream media studios live. All right? Anxiety. They call it anxiety when people who want to control the destiny of their towns and their neighborhoods vote these things down. And the way the law is written, it actually says a community gets to vote on whether or not to accept this type of zoning. But then they tell you if you don't vote yes, you're in trouble. There's all kinds of state funding they're going to threaten to take away from you or not allow you to participate in. I mean, just listen to the language there. And then they characterize the vote in Needham again as like something bad. The vote in Needham actually, under the way the law was written and the guidelines were promulgated, the formula that they had to follow, I don't remember the exact number, but it was something like they had to build like 1,000 apartments or 1,500 apartments, something on that order. But the proposal that was on the ballot for the voters of Needham last week would require something like 3,500 apartment units to be built. So it was a way above, more than double or triple what they would have to build under this law, which this flawed dictate. And the voters said, no, we don't want to go way overboard. If we're going to comply, we'll comply with the bare minimum so we have more control over our zoning in town and city planning. So what the Needham voters rejected was an outrageous development proposal, over 3,400 units or something like that. Unbelievable. But this guy, he doesn't tell you that, okay? So that's the kind of the spin you have to watch out for. There's also, as I just mentioned, the state is threatening communities with withholding funds if you don't vote the right way. How can it be constitutional to require people to vote, but then say if you don't vote the right way, we're going to punish you? How is that remotely constitutional? But remember, this is the Massachusetts State Supreme Court, which tends to be very, very pro-central planning. Okay, so they want this, and to them, the means, the ends justifies the means. All right, that's not the right approach to take. You want to build. I'm a housing commissioner. I understand the need for housing. I know the people that need the housing. I understand all that. I've been involved in studying and fighting the 40B issue for, I don't know, 20 years or more. I understand all that. My history and involvement goes back way, way, way with all this stuff. And this is not the right way to try to create more available housing to people that need it. It just doesn't work. It's a dictate. And again, as I said, they're going to threaten you with taking funding away from you if you don't vote the right way. And so what's happening now is that there is a certain limited number of state grants that they will not give to a community if the MBTA community does not vote the right way. So for example, Duxbury voted down the MBTA community zoning. Marshfield voted it down twice. Tewksbury, Middleborough, Hanover, I mean, all the towns, so many towns around here and all throughout eastern Massachusetts have delayed or rejected. And it's only something like 30 to 40 of the 177 towns and cities that have actually voted to adopt the MBTA zoning, community zoning. And they like to say, oh, the majority of towns and cities have already gotten on board, yay. No, a small number have actually adopted it. The vast majority have outright rejected it, or they've delayed the vote until they see what's going to happen with the regulations and guidelines, or until they can develop a legal strategy. And an even greater number of towns and cities than the actual 30 that have outright rejected it are now involved in a class action suit and a challenge that will likely go to the United States Supreme Court at some point. So this is not a done deal. And for these editorializing people, to mainstream media mucky bucks, to tell you what a bad person you are, go tell it to the A.G. Campbell, who just moved to an exurb, okay, away from all of this controversy. The thing I wanted to show you is that when you get a grant now from the state, they'll send you a letter, and I don't know if there was a graphic here of a letter, if I can find it. What the graphics are what, D2?
D3.
D3 right here. Do I click that?
Yes.
Now, here's a letter. Now, how do I put that up? Take. Here's a letter from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to the chief of the fire department in Duxbury. And in the letter, signed by the governor and by the lieutenant governor, it says, we're going to give you the grant to help your firefighters stay safe, to get extra equipment under this state grant that you applied for. But, we're giving it to you now. But we know that you voted down the MBTA Communities Act. And in the future, you're going to have to be compliant with the MBTA Communities Act in order to get any future grants like this. So and you can see the signatures on the letter. They're basically like rubber stamps or computer generated. But the interesting thing now, there's another letter. Where's the other letter? Is that another, a D4 or someplace? There's another letter. Oh, there it is, right there. There we go. Guess what? They use the same, you see the signatures are absolutely identical. The town of Chester, which is like out west of Springfield in Berkshire somewhere, they also were given a grant for the same program that gives firefighters training and equipment, for special situations. And they got the same letter, and it says, you're getting this grant now, but guess what? If you don't vote to accept the MBTA Communities Act, you may not get it on the next round. What does that say about their intelligence, or, it's just their incompetence to send the same threat letter? But it's also, to me, it's a warning shot to the communities all over the state, as far west as Adams and Stockton and all those other Western Mass towns, that you've got to be careful about this requirement to build thousands of housing units, because it's not going to be limited just to the so-called MBTA communities, whether you get MBTA service or not. But this is going to be a statewide dictate, or diktat, as we used to say in Russia, where you're going to be required to build multifamily units, big, giant, high-density projects in 15-minute cities. So this is foreshadows, and this belies their true intentions, which is not to make this limited to eastern Massachusetts and so-called MBTA communities, but also to apply it all over the state. And in fact, this is the map of Chester right here. Can I click on that? There's where Chester is located, all right? Does that look like it's part of the 177 MBTA communities? It's way out there. It's like out west of Northampton, okay? Now, anyway, so now I want to jump over to another issue. To go back to me, I go to take. There we go. I'm learning the system. I have Ivana from the studio, who's the. Are you an assistant manager now?
Production manager.
She's the production manager. Ivana's been here now for 2-3 years or something like that. So if you ever come to, I still urge people to come to the studio to visit when I'm doing my show, or to do your own tapes and your own shows. The whole technology about doing shows and vloggers and podcasts has gotten really simple, that you can basically do it sitting on a park bench with a smartphone. But the studio still has got awesome, especially for large gatherings in a quiet setting. You can do all kinds of programs and shows here. Let's see. The next thing I want to go to is I got stuff related to Chapter 48, Section 3A. These are the parts of the MBTA Communities Act that I want to show you. Take. There it is. See, what happened is that there's a mass legislation called Chapter 48, which deals with zoning. And there is the language of the Zoning Act. An MBTA community shall have a zoning ordinance or bylaw that provides for at least one district of reasonable size. These are the guidelines and this is actually the actual statute. And there was supposed to be guidelines that were issued to enforce this or to implement this. And initially, they were going to keep communities from participating in grant programs, such as here under Section 3A Part B, like the Housing Choice Initiative. You would not be eligible for their funds. The Local Capital Projects Fund, under a certain chapter, you wouldn't get access to. You wouldn't be eligible for Mass Works infrastructure programs or the Housing Works infrastructure program. I mean, you'd have to know the history of all these things. And as far as I know, none of these apply to the work I do on the Housing Authority. But some people, but what's been happening is that this list of programs that towns are being excluded from, if you don't vote the right way, that list is constantly being expanded, and including the grants to the fire departments for equipment and training that they need to keep their workers safe. Now, this is being implemented by something called the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. You see that in line 1 of Section 3A, paragraph C, the EOHLC. It's not capitalized there, but they're the agency that implements this. They're also the agency, by the way, that oversees housing authorities. They write the regulations for housing authorities. And as a housing commissioner, I've always been told that I can always go to the EOHLC to get my questions answered about regulations and programs and stuff like that. But so far, it's been like really hard to get information from them. Maybe they're too busy dealing with the MBTA Communities Act. But as a housing commissioner, as you're a housing commissioner in Marshfield, as one of your housing commissioners in Marshfield, it's been really tough getting information. All right, let's go to something more national related that's kind of controversial. And that's, what did Elon Musk do at the Trump rally, or was it the post-inauguration rally at the Capitol Center in Washington, D.C.? They claim he made a Hitler salute. All right, now, I don't know about this. I honestly don't know if this has got any legs or any credibility. Let's see what some of the examples of these salutes are. Somebody made a commentary on it. Who is it here? Corporate needs you to find the difference between this picture and this picture. There's Adolf Hitler, probably from the 1930s, and there's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez raising her arm like that. And it all has to do with catching the moment that somebody does something like this. And a lot of people raise their arms and swing their arms around. It may be momentary. It may be quick. It may be more, I don't know. The duration is always a thing. But the point is, there's Mr. Waltz, a candidate for vice president, raising his hand like that. A lot of these things can be taken out of context. And there's, of course, there's an ardent, strident member of the Schutzstaffel herself, okay, Commandant Swift. But in other words, all I'm trying to say is that, I mean, really? I mean, and I think Elon Musk has been quoted and has explained what he did when he raised his arm up like that. I actually saw the clip, and I don't think the clip is in here. Is the clip in here? Would I see it somewhere? DD1. I don't see. Nope. They're here.
On the screen with the mouse.
Oh.
DDR1.
Right here. Up here.
Nope. Where the green tab is.
Right here.
Nope. The other green tab.
Oh, there's. Oh, I see. Let's see. Let's see if there's a clip. Oh, there are the clips. All right. Here's Elon right here. Oh, no, that's not. Is that the one? No, that's something else. Oh,
This one?
yeah, that first one right here.
Yep. So that's it. So you can
Hit take.
But it was billionaire Elon Musk who might have stolen the spotlight with this speech.
This is what victory feels like. Yeah! Elections are, important, some are not, but this one, this one really mattered. And I just want to say thank you for making it happen. Thank you. My heart goes out to you. It is thanks to you that the future of civilization is assured.
So you can see what he did was that he. How do I get back to me now? Oh, there we go. So you can see what he did was he's like taking his heart and he's throwing his heart out to everybody. And everybody's done something like that at some point or another. By the way, this Elon Musk guy, if you were a guy, would you ever want to go to a bar with him, right? If you were in college or something, looking for chicks or something, would you hang out with a guy like this? I don't think so. This guy is so awkward. But you can tell, but that again, in context, in terms of the person, the setting, and then they just try to make a big thing out of it, like there's some big Nazi guy. And it reminded me, I'm old enough to remember a TV show called The Dating Game. Remember The Dating Game? Remember how they closed all their shows? And it reminded me of that. Now I click on that, and now I hit take. Or do I click on this? Or
preview DDR1.
now I can hit. Now remember this. Remember The Dating Game and how they used to sign off from their shows. Remember that?
Bye-bye. Hope you always get the date you really want. Ready to show a kiss? Come on, let's fire. Here we go. Bye.
Tonight on The Cosby Show, can the family...
Sieg Heil translates to Heavenly Kiss. Remember that show? I do. I'm part of the generation that grew up on early TV. My favorite show as a kid was Perry Mason and the Steve Allen Show. All right. Anyway, that's how old I am. What else do we have? I'm just trying to run through my clips. Here's a clip that we haven't gotten to yet, and it's some commentary from the Tucker Carlson show. All right, I want to play this, and we can talk about it a little bit. Let's move on to that right now. I think this is going to be a relatively short show. So that's clicked on there. DDR1 preview take. Oh, it's in the preview. Okay, there it is. Here we go. Let's see let's explore this clip. Explore with me. Join me in this little adventure.
And I think what changed in Boston, which is part of the problem, that you see is that no one from Boston that grew up in Boston or in the Boston area, like Medford, where I'm from, Everett, Somerville, no one in Cambridge, no one that grew up there can afford to live there.
I know.
So what you have is you have all these transients and these people from the suburbs and out of state that grew up in rural areas their whole life. Now they want to be city people. They move in here and, you know, they're paying the high rents, they're paying the high costs, and they're basically controlling the narrative. And that narrative is not consistent with the Boston that I knew and that I grew up with. Boston was a blue-collar city that was very proud, very patriotic.
Very.
And now it's completely, gone the other way. And
well,
that's
there
not
was a
good
great
thing.
deal of attention to like the people who live there. I mean, that's one thing I always noticed about Boston. It was obviously corrupt to some extent. There were a lot of drunk people in the State House. On the other hand, like they seemed to, the quality of life issues, it was safe, it was clean, it worked pretty well. There was real services there. And that it seems to have inverted. Like there are almost no working class people in Boston that I can see.
No, if you go down the Seaport, South Boston, I mean, you go down the Seaport and look, development's great for an area, but it's going to be developed with the intent that people that are from there don't get forced out.
Well,
they can afford to live there. The gentrification that Boston has seen over the last 10 years is crazy.
Yeah, Sean O'Brien discussing the changes in the living conditions and the atmosphere and demographics, et cetera, in the Boston area. I'm also old enough to remember when people were literally abandoning their properties in Boston and Dorchester. Things got so bad, and I actually worked for an agency at the time, and we would come into the office in the morning, and we had a map of North Dorchester and Dudley Square, and we would color in lots for each house that had burned down the night before. So there was a lot of torching going on, a lot of pipes and wires being ripped out of houses, and the streets were really nasty. Call it the bad old days. And people were literally abandoning their properties. Nowadays, you try to buy some of that property, and you can hardly touch it. The prices have gone through the roof. And when I was in the consulting business, we were renovating properties in the South End. And at that time, you could get those properties. They were just coming off of that period of abandonment. But some people had the vision to know that, especially some of these brownstones, were going to be worth a lot of money. Now you go into places like Andrew Square, down towards UMass, Dorchester Avenue, Savin Hill, South Boston, forget about it. I mean, my family had a chance to buy property down around Farragut Circle, Farragut Square, towards Castle Island. You can't touch that. Anything along Day Boulevard, Carson Beach, is like $1 million minimum for one floor of a triple decker. And places that I've worked in recently in the Ashmont area, it's amazing the renovation work that's going. So people that actually were able to get in there, a lot of them with adjustable rate mortgages, got screwed when the rates went up. They were basically paying rent. It enriched all the mortgage companies and the banks. Now their people are getting forced out, and those properties are turning over to developers who are making a killing. It's amazing. So it's interesting to hear Sean O'Brien talk about, oh, geez, Boston, what happened? Yeah, it's all explainable. Okay, it's easily explainable, and I don't know why that kind of logic can't be applied to the whole so-called housing crisis right now to understand what has actually happened or the history of what has happened. So that's just some commentary that I have on that, and it's related to the whole MBTA Communities Act thing. And I did refer, and I'm gonna bounce back now on this and make a little bit of commentary related to the MBTA Communities Act. I did not show this graph when I first talked about it. I'm going to show it to you now. And I hit the take, or is that BDR2? Click on, oops, I just made a mistake. Oh, DDR1, DDR2 right here.
Nope. Hold on.
Hold on, folks.
Oh.
There it is. There it is. So you click on that, push on. We got to get in preview. Maybe no. Oh, something just popped up.
It's not here. Oh, there we go.
There it is. Okay, there's the graph. Thank you for waiting out there, folks. I'm almost done with the show. This is a graph showing the ridership on the MBTA from the period, let me see, February 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, almost over a 6-year period. This is how ridership on an average day, on any given day, has changed on the MBTA. And you can see it looks like it starts, let's see, January 18, January 19, January, so in January of 2020, just in between February and May of January 2020, you can see that ridership, daily ridership on the MBTA just fell off a cliff. All right? In January of 2020, ridership was up over 400, close to 500,000 a day. And when COVID hit, it went boom, it just fell down. And it started to recover as the COVID restrictions began to loosen up. But since then, what has happened? It's flatlined. It hasn't changed. It's stayed down around 200 to 300,000. And that's where it remains today, to this day, because a lot of people are now working from home, and they are frustrated with the MBTA system. I recently parked my truck up at Braintree to go downtown Boston, and it took me something like an hour and 10 minutes to ride the red line to get to a downtown crossing, used to the old Washington Street. And then I had to walk over to the court, one of the courthouses on Beacon Hill. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And then on top of that, I had to pay a fee to park at Braintree. I mean, it was just ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And it just goes to show you the sad state of the MBTA. But that's where we are. And now Maura Healey and the proponents of MBTA zoning, the ideologues or whoever else is behind it, they want you to believe that we need thousands of housing units because they're next to DD1 for me again, or one over here. Camera. There you go. So now they want you to believe that we need tens of thousands of over 100,000 housing units, even though now in Eastern Massachusetts there's something like 100,000 units that are like vacant, waiting for people to rent them or buy them. So they want you to think we have to build all these units. For what? The ridership is not there. The access to jobs is not there. The workplace environment has changed. And people are leaving the state by the thousands and thousands every month because of taxation and other policies. So how does it possibly make sense? How does it possibly make sense? What it does is it lays the groundwork and sets the atmosphere for major high-density 15-minute city development in the future. It just lays that groundwork. And you'd be silly to vote for this kind of thing, whatever town you're in. You just have to be totally silly out of your mind, all right, to vote for this kind of thing and not fight to control fight for the control of your local community development and planning on a town-by-town basis. No problem. You want to enter into some sort of cooperative agreement with the state or other towns or with a regional planning agency, fine. You should be able to do that. But you shouldn't be told you must prepare to take 1,100 high-density family units like Marshfield is being told. You have to make that possible. And they say, oh, it's not likely it'll get built. Well, guess what? Guidelines can be changed. Some towns are adopting MBTA zoning districts like we're trying to do in Marshfield, and we're being told, oh, don't worry. we've chosen an area that will be impossible to convert to high-density family units, which, by the way, do not have an occupancy limit. Each apartment, there's no limit on the number of bedrooms or people that can be in it. What? What? So, I mean, it just sounds dystopian. You know, it's crazy. So why would you adopt that kind of a thing? It doesn't make sense. Should there be regulations that allow you to do high-density development if you want? Yeah, you can make it allowable or permissible, but it should never be mandated, because high-density developments do have a place in the right settings. And of course, my personal view is that all development needs to be compatible with the community and with the natural landscape and environment. So anyway, that's where it comes down to. In the meantime, it has to be challenged and fought all the way, because it's a diktat, it's a symptom of a totalitarian government, and I hope you'll join me in fighting that and advocating to fight it. But to do that, what do you have to do? You need to pick your officials. We have a state representative from most of Marshfield who also represents Situate, who's a phantom. He's never around. He voted for this MBTA zoning. He voted for major gun control legislation. He voted for all the kinds of things that people generally, the majority, don't even approve or accept around here. We have local officials on the select board. They don't reflect the viewpoint of the vast majority of people in town. So we got to change that out. We got to change this representation on a state level, and we need to reassert local control and home rule. Anyway, that's going to do it for me. That's only about a 45-minute show, but I'm Joe Pasevich for Control Room, and I'm still learning this system, but I'm happy to have gotten what I have been able to get in so far. And so now I'm going to try to see if I can find a way to sign out. So I have to go to DDR1, which is right there, and there's the control room close.
Preview it.
Right here. Push that.
Yep.
And good night, everybody. I hope this works. I'll see you soon.